My name is Frances Lucile Cann.
Okay, and what is your date of birth?
8/3/26.
And where were you born?
Down at Lake Weddington.
Okay, and my name is Scott Davis, and this is an interview is for the Prairie Grove Oral History Project, and we just want you to be sure that you understand we're going to use your interview for the project and that we have your permission.
Well, I think it's a church now that's down there at Lake Weddington. Like you go from Prairie Grove and turn, there's a church there. That was school, and we were born right out in the field there, all four of us kids.
Wow. So do we have your permission to use the interview for the project?
Suits me, I don't care.
Thank you. So who were your parents?
Russell and Eula Tate.
Okay, and who were your brothers and sisters?
I had three brothers, Max Tate, L.D. Tate, and Homer Tate.
Okay. Who was the oldest?
Max. He's going to be 96, 8th day of July.
Okay. Where did y'all live when you were growing up?
We lived down there till they started Lake Weddington, and then we moved to Farmington, and then we moved on to Walnut Grove.
Okay. What was your family business?
Dad just worked on the farm. We lived on the Bogart farm out there at Walnut Grove. Dad worked for him.
Okay. What kind of farming did he do?
Strawberries, raised corn, tomatoes, and everything.
Okay. What was your part at home and on the farm? What did you do to help?
Nothing. I didn't do much. I had three brothers and they did it.
What about around the house? What were some of the things you did to help around the house?
Well, Homer washed the dishes. I guess I did some, but he did an awful lot of it. I can remember.
So were you the youngest?
Yes.
So tell me some of the things you did around your house when you were a young child. What do you remember doing?
Well, would you believe that I jumped out the upstairs window in my sleep? And I'm still alive.
How old were you when you did that?
I think I might have been about 13.
Did you do it by act? You didn't remember doing it? You just were
Oh,
asleep?
yes. Mama sent Dad upstairs, and he said, "She's not here." And Mama said, "Here she comes around the house." And I was still asleep when I got back in the house.
But you weren't hurt?
No.
Did you ever help with the cooking or the laundry and stuff like that?
I guess I did. I really can't remember, but I'm sure I did. We picked strawberries, an awful lot.
What are some of your, what did you and some of your friends do for fun when you were younger?
I don't remember having many friends around, girls. We were just, I don't know, us four. We had a good time ourselves.
Now, let's talk about when you went to school. Where did you go to school?
Well, I went to out there at, where'd I say we was born? Down at Lake Weddington. I went there 3 years. And then we went to Farmington a couple of years, I believe. And then we moved to Walnut Grove, and then I come to Prairie Grove. Went to school at Walnut Grove, and then come on to Prairie Grove for 9th grade on.
So the high school went to Prairie Grove?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you said you lived at Lake Weddington, you lived where they ended up making the lake?
No, where that church is. I don't know whether you know where it is or not, but it's still there. And it's a church now, but it was school. And we were born right out there in a field right by it. And then later on, we moved down the road just a little bit, not very far. And then they started building for Lake Weddington, and then we moved to Farmington.
Okay, but most of the time you lived in Walnut Grove?
Yes, yes.
And who'd you say your dad worked for?
What was that rich man? Oh, that big old house is still out there. Well, Bogert. Robert, I don't know whether his name was Robert or not. His son was. Bogert, Mr. Bogert.
Okay. Who are some of the first people you remember meeting who lived in Prairie Grove?
Well, we lived in the funeral home 3 years down there when Homer and Bola lived there. And then we moved up on Summit Street, and Pauline and Vincent Bell lived across the street from us 41 years.
So what year did you move across from the Bells? About what year?
53.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we lived in the funeral home, I guess, from maybe 50 to 53. And then we moved up there and lived there 41 years.
And that was when your brother worked there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what all did he do?
A little bit of all of it, whatever there is to do. You know, they went out and picked up a lot of people. And he done a lot of that. And then I don't know whether he ever finished anybody when they died or not. I don't think so.
And who did he work for?
Lloyd Wayne. Well, Lloyd Wayne's dad, Lloyd Luganville.
Okay.
He lived over there with them for a while.
When you lived out in Walnut Grove, how often would y'all come into Prairie Grove to trade?
Every Saturday.
Was there anything going on in town on Saturdays?
Yeah, that, what is it? They had Trades Day.
What was Trades Day like? Tell me what you remember about Trades Day.
Well, I guess whatever you bought downtown, you got a ticket. And then you put the ticket in, and I remember Mother getting $20. They picked her tickets, you know, and I remember them doing that.
Was it just to shop, or was it sort of a social event to come into town?
Well, Mom and Dad had to come and buy stuff. And then we'd come in to go to the show. There, give $10 to go to the show. The Parks boys had it there right on the main street.
What was the name of the theater? Do you remember?
I don't.
Beverly.
Huh? Beverly? That's what they said. I guess that's what it was.
What stores do you remember doing business with?
Well, the Southern Mercantile. I remember Mama getting the groceries there all the time. And then, what was that other? I can't think of their name. What was her
But you
name?
shopped at Southern Mercantile a lot?
Yeah, yeah.
Did a lot of people come to town in those days?
Well, there's several.
What about kids? Would kids get together and visit and have fun in those days, or it wasn't?
No.
It was more just shopping.
Just shopping. Mm-hmm.
Anything else you can remember about coming to downtown for trade days and to?
Well, I remember we come in the wagon.
How long would it take to come from your place in Walnut Grove into Prairie Grove?
You know, I don't really remember, but I remember we come in the wagon.
Did you always go home at night, or did you ever stay in town?
No, we went home.
Where did your family go to church? Did y'all go to church?
Out there at Walnut Grove.
The church is still out there now?
Mm-hmm. It is open.
Who were some of the people that you remember from church that you went to church with?
Well, let's see. I can't remember.
It's okay if you can't.
Oh, let's see. The Hamlins, Mac Hamlin, Jack Hamlin, and his mother and dad. Jewel Hamlin, you remember her?
No. So let's talk about whenever you, when you got married and got your own place. Who did you marry, and when did you move out of your parents' home?
In 49, August of 49, and we come over at Prairie Grove and got an apartment and stayed there a little while and then moved to the funeral home. and stayed 3 years. And then we moved a house in and fixed it up and lived there 41 years.
You moved in a house that was already built?
It was built, but we moved it into Prairie Grove, and it's still there. Just across from Pauline and Vincel Bell, we moved that house in.
What street was that on?
Summit Street.
Tell me about the house.
Well, it come from out there at where Joyce Cunningham lives now. It was across the street from her. I can't think of the people's name, but I did know. But that's where it come from. And we moved it in and fixed it up, and moved in it and lived there 41 years.
Okay. And tell me about your kids.
Just got one.
Okay.
We was married 10 years before she come along. And Elaine Clayton.
Okay.
And she works down here at the
What year was she born?
59.
And what would Elaine do for fun when she was a kid?
Oh, she had the time of her life. Riding bicycles, and her and Becky Lehman were best friends, and they had a good time together.
Okay. How was her life growing up different from yours?
Well, quite a bit. She didn't have 3 aggravated brothers.
What about phones? Did you have phones when you lived out on Walnut Grove?
No.
When did you first have a phone?
I guess when we moved to Prairie Grove. And that was, 49 when Wayne and I got married.
When you and Wayne got married, what did adults do back then for fun? What would y'all do?
Play cards, I guess. What I remember.
What kind of cards would you play, and who would you play them with?
Pitch, or my mother and dad. We played pitch most of the time.
What do you remember about going to Prairie Grove High School?
Well, I better not tell you this. I remember hitting Rodney Rigall with he said something I didn't like, and I swatted him with one of them things you play tennis with.
Did you get in trouble for it?
Nope.
What was the classes like back then and the teachers?
Well, Miss Holmes, you know her? She went,
What does that mean?
well, her nose bothered her, and she just come around like that.
Oh, she. How have you noticed? What kind of changes have you noticed around town since those days? How have times changed since then?
Well, an awful lot, really.
Tell me more.
Well, right lately there's nothing fit to buy downtown but junk. You know, we used to have stores where you could go buy stuff, good stuff.
Like what?
Well, clothes and stuff like that. And there's nobody got clothes fit to buy now. Not even J.C. Penney's in Fayetteville. To my opinion.
So, do you remember, what about the Battlefield Park when you first moved here? What was it like then?
Well, it wasn't as big. You know, it was just right there. And, you know, all of it's. And we used to have ride the Ferris wheel up there. I remember riding that.
Where would they set that up?
Well, it was right there somewhere close in the, I guess right in the middle of that, really, best I can remember.
Did it stay up year round, or was
No.
it just during the
No, it was just during
Clothesline Fair?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What else can you think about Prairie Grove that you want to tell me that you remember?
Well, I can't remember too much about it. I remember we went to the show every Saturday night for 10 cents.
What were some of the shows you remember watching?
I don't remember any of them. I don't remember the names of them. But we come nearly every Saturday night.
Now, what did your husband do? Where did he work?
at the gas company in Fayetteville. Well, he was working there when we married, and he worked there 41 years.
What were the roads like back then?
Well, this main road was gravel. I remember when that bridge was built out there.
Which bridge?
The big one now.
Illinois River Bridge? What year was that?
I believe it was 38.
So how did you get to Fayetteville before then?
Well, you turned there and went around, turned back there after you passed that first house. Well, the road's still there.
Okay, I know which bridge you're talking about.
Yeah.
Over there by John Robert Hart's. It's down the road from
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Okay. If you could, what about the people from Prairie Grove? What are the people in town like?
Well, that's pretty good people. Didn't have no trouble with them.